Next question I really had was it seems like lately there's been a lot of talk of a potential short squeeze on the metal prices, and it seems as though that the potential for that just keeps increasing the more and more we hear about these dramatic interventions into the precious metals market. Can we expect something like that to happen, or should we expect prices to keep kind of moving gradually up? And what sort of event could potentially trigger this short squeeze?
Well, you can never predict or forecast what event will change market psychology. But I mean, it could be any number of things. You know, the sovereign debt crisis is not over. The problems with the euro are not over. The problems with the U.S. government's continuing deficits and runaway spending, that's not over either. So, any one of these things could be an event which causes people to recognize that they want to move out of financial assets and move into tangible assets. In other words, move out of paper gold and into physical gold. When you own paper gold, you don't really own gold. You just own exposure to the gold price. And that exposure is dependent upon someone's promise, and counterparty risk. As the financial system continues to spin out of control in this economic depression that we're in, counterparty risk and avoiding counterparty risk is going to become increasingly important. And one of the best ways to avoid counterparty risk but still maintain liquidity is to own physical gold. That in itself could be the trigger that causes a short covering squeeze because there's just too much paper out there relative to the amount of physical actually circulating. I used to think that maybe it was 20 to 1, but recently there's been a lot of talk based on CFTC hearings that it's actually 100 times more paper than there is physical. That's sort of astounding to me, but even if it's 20 to 1, which I thought to be closer to the actual number, when the music stops, there's not enough physical to go around. It's just like musical chairs. There's not enough physical to satisfy everybody who's holding paper. And I think that in itself will cause the short squeeze and send the gold price much higher. My expectation has been that gold's going to be $1,800 to $2,000 sometime during the course of this year. And I see no reason to change that forecast, which I made back in December.
Yeah, I remember actually reading that yearly forecast as well, and I probably do agree with you on the price. And going back to the hearings that were recently going on with the London bullion markets and the CFTC, have there been any updates in terms of where these hearings are potentially going? I had heard that the Department of Justice was potentially following up on J.P. Morgan and silver shorts. Is there any background noise about any of these legal actions moving forward?
Well, there may be, but I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for something to happen. There's the Wall Street Washington access. The head of the CFTC is an ex-Goldman Sachs. It's not some soybean farmer from Illinois. So you got to believe that Wall Street's going to be held by whatever the CFTC comes out with, not the soybean farmer in Illinois. So I would not hold my breath for the CFTC or any government agency to take any action.
So in other words, basically, if this fraud is to stop at some point, I guess you would expect the market to be a more reliable way of exposing this fraud than you would, I guess, the U.S. legal system.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're actually hitting on a bigger point that to me is very, very important. Everybody today is looking for answers and solutions from the government. But in fact, the government is the problem. It always has been and always will be. What people should be doing is looking to the market for answers and solutions, because that's where the real solutions are going to come from. It's the market that creates wealth. It's the market that raises people's standards of living or mankind's standards of living. Governments don't do that. At best, they just redistribute wealth, and at worst, they actually destroy it. So what we really need is a change in a mindset, not only in the States, but pretty much worldwide, where people start looking at the market for answers and not government.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you on that. And honestly, one of the best examples I can actually think of is goldmoney.com. And, we've spoken about this before, but I was hoping maybe you could speak a little bit to the viewers about goldmoney.com and about how it is an approach to currency that doesn't deal with government. It is free market and how it functions.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's fundamentally different from all national currencies in a number of different ways. But basically, central banks manage currency based on political considerations. They don't manage it based on bottom line considerations. Central banks don't go out of business regardless of how well or how poorly they do managing the currency. All you have to do is look at inflation rates and financial crises and whatnot. They do a pretty poor job managing currencies. Gold money, on the other hand, is the world's only non-national currency. It's a private currency that circulates because of voluntary cooperation between people. There's no force or anything like that involved with gold money. We provide a service. If people like the service, they use it. They pay us a fee. We earn a profit, and we stay in business. Again, it's fundamentally different from central banks, which are not driven by bottom line accountability. They don't care about the quality of the service they provide. Central banks only care about their political considerations. And that's very unfortunate because money should be a neutral tool in commerce. It should not be subject to political influences. When it is, it impedes commerce, and that's a bad thing because commerce actually creates opportunities for interaction among us, among all of us in society. And that's what raises, again, mankind's standards of living. So, money should be a neutral tool, a level playing field that everybody can use without government intervention, government interference, or political considerations. That's why gold money is fundamentally different from national currencies.